After all that hard work, we finally get to do some materials, and I promise you this is much more fun and hands-on and lots less cutting things into small shapes, and all of our hard work will pay off. So this is what we got to in the last session, and you can see we've got this nicely unwrapped arcade cabinet, and the only thing I've done in between the two videos, apart from sleep and change my jumper because it's a completely new day, is rename some of the objects that I hadn't given names. So I just went right through, and I thought I'd do that off camera because it's even more boring than watching me slowly UV map an arcade machine. I hope you didn't find it too boring. Anyway, what we're going to do now is a first pass at materials, and again I'm going to split this into two videos because they're two separate ideas. So what I want to do in this one is look at the base materials and how we can put details and dirt and imperfections of things. And then in the second video, we're going to look at a few different ways that we could put images as textures, and it will all make sense when we come to it. But yeah, I thought it was worth devoting two dedicated videos to it. So the first thing we're going to do is, now we've got this nice material, we're going to make a completely blank new material. So we've currently got our checker material, and we're just going to click that off with the arcade machine selection. It doesn't really matter which part you got selected, but whichever one you delete the material on will go white. I'm going to make a new default material, and I'm just going to give it this kind of pinky colour for no real reason other than I just want to be able to see it. And we'll call this temp material. And then we're going to use the A key to select everything. Also, just make sure you turn back on your light strip if you had it hidden like I did. Okay, so we're going to select everything with the A key and hit Control and L and link materials. So now everything is using this material again. Change colour, everything changes. Cool. So what I want to do now is I'm just going to go up to here and choose external data and automatically pack resources. So we did that before. You might have it turned on, but just in case you haven't. So we're going to check that. That just means Blender is going to take any images that we add into our project and save it within the file rather than linking them externally. There are times that you want them externally linked. I don't know what those times are other than keeping your file size down, but here we are. So we're going to go to the render view, and we'll just check that we've got all of our settings the same. So ray tracing is turned on. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this material. So that's done by hitting this button here, and it'll become the material name and then 001. And we're going to call this base metal. And I just want to work on the arcade cabinet at the moment. So if we click on anything else, it will say temp material still, and we can just check by changing this. Okay. So let's give this a kind of, again, it's all placeholder now, but let's give it a kind of, maybe a shade like that for now. And then we discussed in the previous video that Blender has various tabs. So we've been working in the UV tab before. We're going to jump to this one, the shading tab. Okay. And this looks kind of familiar. So everything controls the same way as before up here. And we can move in and out with our mouse wheel, and we've got padding tools. We can do some editing, but you wouldn't really want to because you haven't got all of your tools on show. I'm getting distracted, let's not worry about that. What is important is down here, and if you've done some of the previous sessions, you'll be kind of familiar with these settings. So we can turn up the metallic, say, and bring up the roughness. So we can play around with the basic material, but what it's doing is it's applying that to the entire object in the same way. And what we want to do is use an image to alter things. So it's easier to show than to explain. One other thing is we also need to make sure that the node wrangler node is turned on. So as I remember before, I think it is, I said this confidently last time, I think it is now default in Blender. It should be, because every tutorial you ever watch will say use the node wrangler tool. But if it isn't, go to get extensions and then search for node. Right, in fact, yeah, it's definitely included now because it's not in the extensions. So it's there. Okay, so it should be there already. If you can't find it, give me a comment and I will put together a little video showing how to install it. So what the node wrangler does is not So what we can do now is, if we right click and so what we can do now is we can add in another part of this flowchart. So we use the same shortcut, Shift and A, and we're going to search, and we're going to type in image texture. And for now, we're just going to connect that to the base color, and everything will go black because there's no image loaded in. And if I hit open, now I'm going to upload all of these texture files for you to be able to use. Feel free to use any of your own, but for now, I think it's easiest if we're all using the same materials. So I'm going to load this file, Imperfections Arcade, and you can see now we've got these kind of scratches and spots. And because we've unwrapped everything, it's all aligned and neat and in the right place, which is looking cool. If we now select Imperfections Arcade and hit Control-T or Command-T, depending on if you're on a Mac, the node wrangler will automatically add in this, and you'll see that nothing changes, but we can now select all three of these with the Shift key and type in a value of, say, 3, and it's changed the scaling of this, so we've got more detail, and we can make, if we make 0.5, we've got much bigger scratches. So it's up to you, depending on what you want, but I think 3 works quite well for this. So that's great, but we don't want a black and white arcade machine. A really important thing to get your head around with working in materials is Blender works from 0 to 1, and it represents 0 to 1 with black and white. So black is 0 and 1 is white. And so we've already got this slider here that says roughness. And if we connect into the roughness part and turn off and drag this away from the base color, you'll see that everything is shiny with a few little marks where it's not. So that's cool, but we don't want a super shiny arcade machine. So what we can do is we can add a node in between here, and this is one of the most useful. I absolutely love this node. I use it for everything, as you're all about to find out. So we're going to add in the color ramp, and we're going to connect it like this. Okay, and nothing should change. But now, and this is where you get to start to get really like clawy hands from all the shortcuts, but if you hit Control and Shift and then click on the color ramp, you'll see that the node wrangler has automatically taken our output from here instead of sort of bypassing this, and we're just looking at whatever is on the color ramp. And if you ever want to see what any node does, you can just click on it, and you know, some interesting stuff to look at there, but this is all I'm worried about. So we can move this down so we could make our scratches brighter, or we can move this up and make less scratches. What I actually want to do is change this value here. So click on the black at the bottom and then pull this up. And then we're going to turn the white scratches, we're going to turn them black. And then because we can't see them so well, we're going to pull this back over. So what I'm hoping is going to happen is that the main body of the arcade machine will be less rough. Also will be rougher because it's white, and then the scratches where the paint's worn away and the shiny metal underneath will be shiny. So if we now Control Shift back on our principal BSDF, so you can see that's what we've got going on now. We can see like and it's maybe still a bit shiny for my taste, so we're going to click here and pull it up even more. So it's up to you to decide how much you want your arcade machine to be glossy or shiny or metallic looking. We've got these nice looking scratches. So that's a great start. What I want to do now is add some dirt into the whole color. So I'm going to use another node, another really useful one called noise. So same idea, Shift and A, search, and then noise texture. And we want to connect these two nodes. So this one here is telling Blender which set of information to use to display the texture, and we've created our UV map, so we're going to use that. And let's use the same scale. Yeah, let's take the output from here, and then we're going to Control Shift on our noise texture and see what we've got. And we've got these kind of clouds, and if we play around with, let's take the detail down, and we can change the scale. So I'd like this to be bigger, Okay, so you can see we've kind of got some smudges in there. So what I want to do is combine that smudging with this colour. So what I'm going to do is pull a line. In fact, let's not do that. I'll use that later on, but we're just going to click off and hit Shift and A, search, and we're going to use mix colour. So anyway, type it in to get that. And then we're going to double click on here and copy this and paste it into here. So we've got our colour there, and if we connect our result up, nothing's going to happen. We'll just Control Shift on that. And we want to change this to multiply. So if you've used Photoshop or other programs like that, you'll know there's different blending modes, and Blender uses the same idea. And at the moment it's mixing between white and the purple colour. So we're going to connect the factor into the bottom slot, and then as we move the cursor we can dial in and out this dirt. So it just gives like a little subtle detail. I still think this is maybe a bit shiny, so I might even bump this roughness up even higher. There we go. This is the world of Blender, just constantly changing things around and seeing if you're happy with them. Yeah, that's looking much better. So it's subtle and it just gives like a little bit of dirt and smudginess. But I want to really like increase that grungy feel to it because I want this to look like a vintage machine. So I want these edges to be kind of worn away from being used. So we're going to drag our mouse around all of this and just move it down to give ourselves a bit more space. We could have just zoomed out, but it's nice to make some space. And then we're going to Shift and A and add in a brand new node called ambient occlusion. And if we now Control Shift on this, we're not going to see a lot. You can kind of see like shadows, and you'll know from playing games where it's a setting, if you have ambient occlusion on, it kind of fills in the shadows more. So it works out where the light wouldn't be able to get in and fills in those shadows for you. So it's kind of like ray tracing, but we can use that to pick out more details. So when I hit this button that says inside, and now it's going to start acting like it's picking out the edge. Let's set our samples to 8 because we don't need it to be super detailed. Now let's set our distance really close, so 0.0, let's go with 8. And you can see we've got this kind of edge now, which is doing what I want, but we want to be able to play around with it. So we're going to use a node that you can get very used to, which is the color ramp. So we're going to drag a line out of there and type in color ramp. And Blender will connect up at one end, and we're going to now Control Shift on here so that we're in preview mode for that node. And if we start to drag across, you can see like it's picking out the edges. So you can choose how much you want, how worn you want the edges to be. Maybe something like that. But what I actually need to do is swap these around. So if we click on this node and then set it to white, and then if we click on this node and set it to black, so now Blender will, when we use this as a mask in a minute, Blender will pass through anything that is black and mask off anything that is white. Okay, so give you some idea of what we're doing. Let's go back to our material. So what we can do now is the same way that we mixed this color, we can mix different materials together. So we're going to make an entire new principal BSDF inside our metal. I'm hoping this isn't too complicated. I know we're covering a lot of things, but the best way is to just dive in and see where we get to. So Shift A, search, and we're just going to type in principal, and it should come up. So now if we click on this, we're going to give this completely metal finish, so fully metallic. I'm going to turn the roughness down so it's super shiny. And I think that'll do us. We could maybe darken the color a little bit. And what we're going to do now is mix between these two shaders using this as a mask, which will make sense in a second. So Shift and A, search. We'll need mix shader this time. If you try and use mixed color, it won't work. So we'll connect one into there, and one into there, and then connect this to the output. And we'll just Control Shift on the mix shader, so we're definitely viewing. And if everything's gone right, it should look like this. So at the moment, we're not using this mask. And if we change the slider all the way to 1, we get full shade. And if we change it all the way to 0, we get nothing. So if we now connect this up, and I've got my nodes the wrong way around. Oh, it's just a little test. So what we're going to do is change these back. So this will be black. And this will be white. Why did that not update? Let's try again. This will be black. And this will be white. There we go. And we can play around with these shader edges, these color ramp edges, to make it more defined or less defined, to pick out where it kicks in. So it's just a case of working out how worn away you want your edges. I think that's looking pretty nice. And again, if you increase the distance, you can soften the edges and have more of a pronounce. So it's definitely a case of kind of playing around and working out where you want. Let's set it to 0.1 and give ourselves something like this. So it's kind of worn away where people would be like resting their arms and on the side of the machines where their feet might be. I think maybe this is a little bit too worn. It's not a completely derelict machine. Let's do something like that. Nice. And one last thing that I want to do is, there's another setting here in our, let's move this one out of the way. So we know that's our Chrome and this is our paint. There's another setting called, where is my setting? There's another setting called the normal map. And again, from playing games, you'll be familiar with the fact that normal maps are a way of giving detail to things that aren't there. So what we can do is we can put a bump map into this. So I would drag from normal and choose bump, and it's now connected. And then if we use our scratches map, we put it into height, and it'll just take a second to recalculate. And you can see now we've got this extra bit of detail. Now, it's a little bit extreme for my taste, so I'm going to dial the strength right down to like 0.2. So it's only just there, but paint's very thin. Okay, and there you go. We've made ourselves a metallic paint color, and this is, you know, if you want to change the color, you're just going to change this, so you can kind of settle on whatever final shade you want to be. Perfect. Okay, so the next thing is let's apply it to here as well. So we should now be able to choose base metal, and you can see it's automatically worked out where the edges are. It's used the texture. It's done all the work for us. I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Nice. It's looking good. Okay, let's do this metal here. So we're going to do the same approach, and we'll just go through all the steps so that it's kind of gone into your brain. So you click on here to make a new material. I'm just going to do that again because I kind of did a bit quickly. So we're going to click on this button, this like duplicate page, and it will make a new material. And that way we're not overwriting the previous one. So we're going to call this one shiny metal. We can just change the color to check that we're just working on this. Perfect. So I'm going to set this to like a grey. And then I'm going to set my metallic to full. I want it more grey than that. That's got a bit of colour tint in it. Well, that seems to be doing a good job of getting a neutral grey. There we go. And we'll take our roughness to around there. And then again, we can do exactly the same thing. So if we hit search, Shift and A, and add an image texture, and then hit open, and we can use the same texture, I think. Yeah, it should work for this. And we're just going to add that into the roughness. And I quite like it that way around, but let's add in a color ramp. And maybe we want to just reduce this, make it more white so that the base material is rougher. There we go. Perfect. And so now we can select these three objects and then hit Control and L, making sure that we selected this last. Hit Control and L and choose Link Materials. And there we go, that's that part done. So let's select all of our screws. Maybe you've named them, maybe you haven't, but we're going to Shift select those and then select this and hit Control and L and Link Materials. And the great thing is now I can make any changes to this. I could decide I want a different shade. Everything will update automatically. Perfect. Great. So let's look at another technique. Let's have a look at this speaker here. So if we go into UV editing and click on our speaker again, oh, it's already selected, I've just lost it. And then we'll go into edit mode with the tab key, choose our faces and hit A for everything. This is the shape that we've got. Now we could texture everything, or we could do it the easy pro way and use an image. And helpfully I've got one. So we're going to just click on this and name this speaker material. And we're going to click on this dot and change it to image texture. And then we're going to open our textures and we've got this image here. And at the moment, that doesn't give us anything. If I now hit the tab key again, you'll see on this side that the image is showing. And this looks a little bit squashed. There's various reasons for that, but it's mainly because this image isn't square and Blender has tried to compensate for that. We can fix that by hitting UV and choosing unwrap again. And now we can position this, but more importantly, we can scale it. So we're just going to position this using this S to scale and G to move, same as we would do with anything else, and get it kind of into that space. And if we zoom in, for the kind of distance you're going to view this from, that looks like we've made this really handcrafted 3D model, and we've actually just stolen a photo and stuck it on there. Perfect. I'm going to set this to our base metal again. That's looking good. Okay. So this, let's look at this one. So this is going to be our light box. So we're going to call this light material. And in a future video, this is where the arcade game logo is going to display. So let's set this to, let's go back into shading just to keep things consistent. And down here where it says emission, we've done this in a previous video, but let's set the strength to 4 and it starts glowing. It doesn't really matter what the base color is because this overpowers it, so you can give it a color. I like a kind of, give it a slightly yellowy tint. So we're going to apply it to that. And we're going to do something fancy with these later on, but let's also just apply it to these strips for now. So click on here, light material. Nice, looking good. Okay, this is going to be an interesting one. So these are going to be our joysticks. So we're going to change this joystick top material. And I want this to have like a textured controller feel. So let's set our base color to a grey for now. We might colour these later on. And I'm going to bring in our noise map again. So Shift and A, noise texture. In fact, no, I'm going to use a different one. Let's use Shift and A, war noise texture. Okay, and we're going to Control Shift on that. And this gives us a kind of spotty, like cell-like material. And if we turn up the scale loads, we get these kind of dots. So something like that should do. And I'm just going to put in, I'm going to drag this, I'm going to put in a bump node now. And then we're going to connect that to the normal. So I just want to move this from the distance to the height and drag this out of the normal, okay? And then click back on our principle. And you can see we've now got this like textured. And again, it's a bit extreme for what I want, so also it's like 0.3. And you can play around with the roughness, give it, maybe it's a bit shiny. And then we're going to click on this and link that material. Whoops, so that's what happens if you do it the wrong way around. And, so you need to make sure that this one is selected last, and that will have the stronger orange glow, and then link the materials. Did that on purpose, obviously. This we're going to call joystick body, so make sure you click on there to make a new material. And I'm going to set this color to a darker grey and turn down the roughness. So it's still plasticky. Maybe we'll make this a bit darker just so it's got more of that feel. There we go. You might want to make these different colours for different players. It's entirely up to you. So I think that's all we need to do on this one. This is going to be a more rubbery material, so let's make a new material salt. Joystick base. So we're going to set this to a grey. and we're going to set the roughness pretty high. But I'd like to bring in some like fingerprint imperfections. So same idea, Shift and A, search image texture, and then there should be some fingerprint smudges in here. So we're going to put that into the roughness. And same problem, everything's gone super shiny, so you know how to fix this now. We're going to, if we go search color ramp, and then position it over the line, it will automatically connect everything up for us. And then we're going to go into this mode. I remember that the black is going to be super shiny, so maybe we want to move it more like this. It's still pretty shiny, so let's bring up our face like this. And maybe we want to make the fingerprints themselves the shiny bit. So let's see if we can bring that detail back in. There we go. So just subtle. It's kind of hard to see on the screen, but you can just sort of make out the fingerprints at the top. And I think this is still too shiny, so let's turn up. There we go. You can see the fingerprints much more now. So it's just these subtle little details that make your whole scene seem more believable. That's looking nice. Okay, I want a black metal material. I think I'm actually going to, I'm going to reuse this material. So if we click on there, it will duplicate everything, and we can name this black metal, my favourite kind of music. And all we need to do is change this to black. So let's keep that black for now. And I'm going to apply it to these buttons. So you remember from before that we can make two materials. So if we click on the plus button there, and then we're going to assign the black metal in there, nothing will change to start with. So let's just solo this, and we want to pick up all of these edges. Let's do it this way. So we're going to use the edge tool. So select the edge tool, and then select loops edge ring. And then you have to do this weird method where you go like that and then like that. And then we're going to select more and select more. So we've just got the base of the button, and we're going to now assign the black metal to that. And then this other one should automatically be filling in these spaces. So we can now change this to our light material on our buttons globe. And because we linked these before, we made them as linked objects, they all update, which is handy. The same thing happened here with these. So the only thing left to do is to set this as, we're going to do the same trick now to make the base of this black as well. So we're going to add another slot in, and then we're going to use the same trick. So edge mode, select loops edge ring, and then click there and there. And if we now bring in the black metal, nothing will happen until you hit assign. Oh, I've gone a little bit early here. So if we now select more, I forgot that I want to select all of the objects. So select more, keep going up. Hopefully you've realised that mapping these to shortcuts would be a good idea. If you ever need to map a shortcut, just right click on it and choose change shortcut, and then you can make them whatever key suits you. So I like having these square brackets because it makes sense to my brain. So we're going to assign that metal now, and then we've got the base of our machine. And we are going to put in a glass screen on this, and we're going to have a moving video game in there. We're going to have an animation. But for now, let's just put in our black material again. So we're going to select these and then select out, and that should be everything we need. So we can now assign that, and that will fill in that space. Great, nearly done. So one last cool trick that we can do is we can change this emission color to use a gradient. So let's add in image texture, and I like this one here, and we're just going to connect that to color. No, we're not. Yes, we are. Sorry. We are. And you can see that we've already got something quite cool going on because all of these are at different points on the gradient. But let's use that to our advantage. Just need to do a little bit of a clean up on this. So we're going to go into layout mode and then solo it. And you can see that we've got this base that we don't need. And if we just turn off subdivision for now, and we can just drag our mouse and just delete these faces. I don't need these faces. And I don't need these faces, so just drag over these. Just take your time, make sure you get everything you need. And the only thing that we need to do is we haven't actually unwrapped these, and this seam at the back, we just use our backspace key to go out of solo mode. This seam at the back looks like a good breakpoint, so we're going to mark this, and it's mirrored so it will automatically apply to the other side. And we're just going to mark seam and turn back on our subdivision. And if we go into UV editing mode now, so we can see both, hit the tab key to edit, and then select everything, and make sure we're in face mode just in case. Now if we hit UV and unwrap, and now it's stretched them out along here. So it's using the length of the gradient. The length of the gradient is running along our objects and gives this really cool effect. And the even cooler thing is if we pick this up and move it, we can change where the gradient is. We're going to use that later on, but you can scale it up and down if you want bigger or smaller gradients. But I'm going to scale it back up again. And we'll kind of have it here, I think, because that looks pretty cool. And if we click on our light box and select all, you'll see the same thing. So we could make this much bigger, so it's using all of the gradient. That gives you a cool effect. And you can, if we select all of these, oh, and if we select this one and then hit all, and if your image has disappeared, you can just choose it from this drop down again. So I think it is this one. Yep. And then if you wanted to change the button tops, it'd be dragging these ones and moving it around. You can see they all update. So we'll be able to animate this later on and give us a cool effect. And there we go. So this isn't the finished design. In the next lesson, we're gonna put images on these panels and create something even more realistic looking. But that should give you a good introduction to the materials. And as ever, if you made it all the way through, well done. Done some good stuff here. See you in the next lesson.